In the 21st century, nothing is more dangerous than ignorance, and the most dangerous kind of ignorance is ignorance of Islam. Islam has a lot to say about various groups, Christians, Jews, polytheists, women, and so on, and it's important for these groups to understand what Islam says about them, because what Islam says about them will have an ever-increasing impact on their communities as Islam spreads. The Quran contains numerous references to Jews, and the Quran's claims about Jews have been affecting Jewish-Muslim relations for nearly 14 centuries. For Jewish viewers who would like to know what Islam says about them but don't have much time to study the Muslim sources, I've put together the shortest possible list of relevant Quran verses. There are dozens of Quran verses about Jews that we could examine, but we're going to focus on just 3, all from the same chapter, Surah 5. The first verse is Surah 5, verse 32. Chances are, even if you've never studied Islam, you've heard part of this verse at some point because it's the most commonly quoted Quran verse in the West, especially after terrorist attacks. When jihadis slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah, we're told that such attacks are un-Islamic because the Quran declares that if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. This is supposedly what Surah 5, verse 32 of the Quran says. Watch what happens when we read the entire verse. Because of that, we ordained for the children of Israel that if anyone killed a person not in retaliation of murder or to spread mischief in the land, it would be as if he killed all mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the life of all mankind. And indeed, there came to them our messengers with clear proofs, evidences, and signs. Even then, after that, many of them continued to exceed the limits, e.g. by doing oppression unjustly and exceeding beyond the limits set by Allah by committing the major sins in the land. Notice 4 things about this verse. 1, the Quran says that this was a revelation for the Jews. We ordained for the children of Israel that if anyone killed a person not in retaliation of murder or to spread mischief in the land, it would be as if he killed all mankind. And we know what the Quran is referring to here. This is a quotation from the Talmud, Mishnah Sanhedrin. The next verse, Surah 5, verse 33, is a revelation for Muslims, and it commands Muslims to dismember and crucify all kinds of people. 2, since this is the standard verse quoted by Muslims to show that Islam is a religion of peace, we should always point out that the most peaceful verse in the Quran is actually a quotation from the Talmud. 3, the Quran says that this Jewish teaching is a revelation from Allah. So according to the Quran, the Talmud, or at least a portion of it, is a revelation from Allah, just as the Torah and the Gospel, according to the Quran, are revelations from Allah. 4, the Quran says that there was an exception to the rule against killing and that Jews could execute people for spreading mischief in the land. If anyone killed a person not in retaliation of murder or to spread mischief in the land, it would be as if he killed all mankind. So Jews, according to the Quran, had authority from Allah to carry out capital punishment for certain crimes committed in the land.
David Wood farther argues that Muslims who cite Quran, chapter 5, verse 32, where Allah, the God, condemns the killing of innocent, are misquoting Quran, as the verse was actually stolen from the books of the Jews. Even in the beginning of this verse, the God says it was revealed to the children of Israel. The verse immediate after that is commands for the Muslims. Verse 33 commands the Muslims to kill those who are against Allah and His Messenger, meaning all non-Muslims. Therefore, according to David Wood, killing non-Muslims are commanded in the Quran. David Wood is a great actor, and he is very good at lying and deceiving people, especially those who lack knowledge and reasoning. Let's take a closer look at the verses to understand what these verses are really saying. Verse 32 and 33 of chapter 5 of Quran was revealed with the example of sons of Adam, Cain and Abel. Verse 27 to 31 speaks about the event when one brother killed another brother. Then it states in verse 32, Because of that, we decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul, or for corruption done in the land, it is as if he had slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved mankind entirely. And our messengers had certainly come to them with clear proofs. Then indeed, many of them, even after that, throughout the land, were transgressors. Muslims believes that Allah, the God, have sent many messengers to every nation in every generation to guide mankind. And prophets like Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, etc. are mentioned in the Quran and are accepted as true messengers of the God by the Muslims. The God mentioned these prophets and their history to educate Muslims, for teaching lessons and morals. Therefore, this verse is not nullified as guideline for the Muslims just because this verse was revealed to previous generation of the children of Israel as guideline. As Allah the God have mentioned this verse also in the Quran, this verse has become a guideline and a way of life for the Muslims. Now let's look at verse 33. Indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger, and strive upon earth to cause corruption, is none, but that they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, or that they be exiled from the land. That is for them a disgrace in this world, and for them in the hereafter is a great punishment. Those who wage war against Allah means forcing the worshippers of Allah, Muslims, to worship other things with Allah or instead of Allah, or stopping Muslims from worshipping Allah. And His Messenger means here stopping the messengers of the God from propagating the God's message. The message is, there is only one God who is above the comprehension of His creation, and to this God all will have to answer for their deeds on the day of judgment, which is inevitable. And it is an obligation on every Muslim who has received the message of Allah to convey the message of Allah and guide mankind. Strive upon earth to cause corruption means commission of crimes like murder, rape, robbery, etc. They be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, or that they be exiled from the land. That is for them a disgrace in this world, and for them in the hereafter is a great punishment. In this last part of the verse, the God is giving guidelines to penalize criminals based on their extremeness of crime.
Next verse, Surah 5, verse 43. The historical background of this verse is that some Jews came to Muhammad to judge a dispute. Allah responds by saying to Muhammad, "But how do they come to you, O Muhammad, for decision while they have the Torah, in which is the plain decision of Allah? Yet even after that they turn away, for they are not really believers." Allah wants to know why Jews would come to Muhammad when they already had the Torah. Muhammad gives a dramatic illustration of Allah's point in Sunan Abu Dawud 44-49, where we see Muhammad's reaction to the Jews coming to him for judgment. In 7th century Arabia, the person who judged a dispute would sit on a judgment cushion. Watch what Muhammad does. They set out a cushion for the messenger of Allah, and he sat on it. Then he said, "Bring me the Torah." It was brought, and he took the cushion from beneath him and placed the Torah on it and said, "I believe in you and in the one who revealed you." So the Jews bring the Torah. Muhammad speaks to it and says, "I believe in you and in the one who revealed you." Then Muhammad takes the judgment cushion out from under him and puts the Torah on the judgment cushion. According to the Quran, do Jews need Muhammad's revelations? No, because they already have the Torah. The Quran, then, is completely useless to Jews. Notice also that contrary to Muslim claims that the Bible has been corrupted, both Muhammad and Allah affirm the inspiration, preservation, and authority of the Torah.
David was saying that the Quran is indicating that the Torah and the Injil are sufficient for the Jews and Christians, but rather in Surah 5, verses number 15 and also verse number 19, there are clear indications that now the Quran has also been revealed to the people of the book, the Jews and Christians, and they too are required to follow the Quran. In fact, Surah 4, verse number 47, warns them of dire consequences if they will not now follow this revelation that comes from God. And that makes sense, because the Deuteronomy verse, chapter 18, verse number 19, says, when I send that prophet, you must listen to him, otherwise I will require it of you. So everybody has to listen to the prophet who comes from God and the new message which has come from God. Jews and Christians are required then to use the interpretive processes to find out what they can still follow of the Torah and the gospel, and to find out what is really original and what is not. But ultimately they are required, if they hear the message of the Quran, to follow that as well. That is the Quranic logic. As for
Third verse, Surah 5, verse 82. Verily, you will find the strongest among men in enmity to the believers, i.e. Muslims, the Jews and those who are al-mushrikun. Mushrikun are idolaters. And you will find the nearest in love to the believers, i.e. Muslims, those who say, we are Christians. That is because amongst them are priests and monks, and they are not proud. So, the greatest enemies of Muslims are Jews and idolaters, and the closest in love to Muslims are Christians. It's interesting how Allah's eternal word, the Quran, changed depending on how Muhammad was feeling. When Muhammad began receiving revelations in Mecca, the message of the Quran was, it's Muslims, Jews, and Christians united as monotheists against the polytheists. Later, Muhammad and his followers moved to Medina, and the Jews rejected him as a prophet. That's when the message of the Quran changed to Muslims and Christians are united against pagans and Jews. Eventually, Christians also rejected him as a prophet, so the message of Islam became, it's Muslims against everyone. Surah 5, verse 82 is obviously from the middle period, when there was still hope that Christians would accept Muhammad. Odd that an eternal book would be so heavily influenced by Muhammad's interactions with non-Muslims. But the Quran's...
السلام عليك أيها الملك.
قد عرفتم ما يقول صاحبكم فيكم، فما هذا الدين الذي فارقتم به قومكم ولم تدخلوا في ديني ولا في دين أحد من هذه الملل؟
أيها الملك، كنا قوم جاهلية نعبد الأصنام ونأكل الميتة ونأتي الفواحش ونقطع الأرحام ونسيء الجوار ويأكل القوي منا الضعيف. فكنا على ذلك حتى بعث الله إلينا رسولا منا نعرف نسبه وصدقه وأمانته وعفافه، فدعانا إلى الله لنعبده ونوحده ويجتمع في طاعته شملنا، ونخلع ما كنا نعبد نحن وآباؤنا من دونه من الحجارة والأوثان. وأمرنا بصدق الحديث وأداء الأمانة وصلة الرحم. صلة الرحم أيها الملك، وحسن الجوار والكف عن المحارم والدماء. ونهانا عن الفواحش وقول الزور وأكل مال اليتيم وقذف المحصنات. وأمرنا أن نعبد الله وحده لا نشرك به شيئا، فصدقناه وآمنا به واتبعناه على ما جاء به من عند الله.
But the Quran's claim that Jews are among the greatest enemies of Islam has had a lasting impact on Muslims and even on their view of future events. In Sahih Muslim, number 7339, Muhammad says, the hour, the day of judgment, will not begin until the Muslims fight the Jews, and the Muslims will kill them, until a Jew hides behind a rock or a tree, and the rock or tree will say, O Muslim, O slave of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.